Welcome to No Church Answers, a weekly roundtable Bible discussion for men. We're not pastors, just regular guys talking about scriptures and their own spiritual journeys. And now, here's your host, Bill Cox.
And welcome, this is No Church Answers. My name is Bill Cox. Roundtable discussion where we bring up topics that may not be comfortable for the average man out there. And what better way to bring it to focus than topics that are a little bit unsettling, but bring the guys for a man up, spiritual oasis for men, to talk about those topics. This one, we're talking about accept, limit, or expel. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce the fellas right now. He is a world-class policy writer and a current professional gambler. The producer, Mr. Steve Titch.
Hello, Steve.
Former prosecutor and a current attorney. We call him the judge. It's Michael Cropper.
Hey, Mike. Guys, good to see you.
And a big deal in talent development. He's a corporate trainer. Dude, it's over.
Baseball season's playing. We're playing well this year.
Hey, all right, hey, over it. We call him the professor, great guy. Robert Koshu.
Hey, Robert.
My name is Bill Cox. I'm basically a indie filmmaker, kind of a writer, and the host of this show, but I work as a contractor. So I can pay for my indie filmmaking and writing and that kind of thing. And I want to go ahead and start with Mr. Steve Titch on this topic.
Love the sinner, hate the sin.
Oh, dude. Absolutely true.
The church answer we always hear. Well, we're gonna see how much we love the sinner and how much we hate the sin. We're going to look at a passage, of course, in Corinthians about how we should, if we should expel people, how we should treat people who bring things into the church that aren't doctrinal or aren't Christian behavior, and what do we do about it? This is kind of go back to our podcast 81. We did this. It was a popular podcast. We're going to have some fun and maybe some highlight discussions.
Or in other words, he's going to make you feel absolutely uncomfortable. So, Judge.
Yeah, we're given a lot of do's and don'ts in the Bible, folks. You know that if you've read any part of the Bible, if you attended church any time at all. The 10 Commandments are the big 10 thou shalls and thou shalt nots that we look at for our basis in our church religion and beliefs. Now, the New Testament shows us a different side of God, which Steve is implanting into this, and we'll see that as he explains it to us, and Robert also, I believe. His purpose is to show God's love. So when Jesus was confronted with sins that were punishable by death, Jesus would forgive the sin, but he would tell the person, stop sinning. So Steve is going to give us a quiz, 3 hypotheticals on handling sin in the church. How do we handle it, Bill?
Excellent, but I saw the notes. I only saw 2. So anyway, the third one must be a secret. If you're not unsettled by the first 2, they're going to make you feel.
We'll make you feel uncomfortable.
Make you feel uncomfortable.
So this is an interesting topic because this is actually one of the things. So if you know one of the groups I bring up a lot about is a group called the Evangelicals. The Evangelicals have used the way church discipline has been applied has one of their reasons why you need to leave and throw the church under the bus and blah, 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 blah. So I think this makes an interesting topic because how do we do the love the sinner, hate the sin thing in the church? And within the church. And I got an interesting little quote, and I'm just going to read off with that. It's from Dietrich Bonhoeffer, his seminal work, Ethics, that he did. Either God does not speak at all, or else he speaks to us as definitively as he spoke to Abraham and Jacob and Moses, and as definitely as in Jesus Christ. And kind of the answer is with that, if Jesus is really speaking to us today, then how do we listen to that to understand how do we interact with those that have brought stuff, as Steve said, into the church. Bill?
Excellent. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and just go into the scripture reading, which is 1 Corinthians 5:11 through 13. But now I am writing to you that you must not associate with anyone who claims to be a brother or sister, but is sexually immoral or greedy, an idolater or slanderer, a drunkard or swindler. Do not even eat with such people. What business is it of mine to judge those outside the church? Are you not to judge those inside? God will judge those outside. Expel the wicked person from among you. And with that, we're going to go ahead and take our first break. We are going to dive into this with some great case studies in a moment. This is No Church Answers. Hi, I'm Bill Cox, host of No Church Answers and director of Man Up, Spiritual Oasis for Men. We hope you enjoy our show as much as we enjoy doing it. But our ministry needs your support if we are to continue to bring our TV show, our podcast, our live shows to men seeking spiritual refreshment. For as little as $5 a month, you can become a patron of Man Up Spiritual Oasis. Get more details at our page on patreon.com. If you would like to support us directly, you can make a contribution through PayPal at donate@manupmedia.org. All contributions are tax deductible. We're not pastors, just regular guys, so whether you're successful or struggling, we hope to bring you the good news of God's saving grace as we share our own spiritual journeys. Please consider supporting Man Up and No Church Answers today. And welcome back. This is No Church Answers. We're talking about accept, limit, or expel. And I just read the scripture about who you are not supposed to associate with. And are we going to go into the first case study?
We're going to go into the case study, but the thing to also concentrate on and remember, Paul is talking about those inside the church. We're not, who are in the congregation or in the assembly. So, yes, we'll go right into those case studies.
In our vernacular, church members.
Church members. So,
okay. Excellent. And with that, this is case study number 1. If you're not uncomfortable yet, you will be. Okay. A longtime member of the church, a deacon, and Sunday school teacher has been charged with federal tax evasion. It turns out for the past 7 years, he has employed undocumented workers in his local contracting business, paid them under the table, and has intentionally misclassified other employees to avoid paying employer taxes and evade labor laws regarding overtime and insurance. He faces a 6-figure fine and possible jail time. He's been telling church friends he was unaware of the scale of the problems and that the real lawbreaker was his company accountant who testified against him to receive a lighter sentence. He is also reminding everyone in the church of how much he has given financially. What do you do? Accept, limit, or expel? Since I'm a contractor, I should basically recuse myself from this one. But I'll let you go first.
I am going to call, and I'm going to use the word BS on a guy, on an owner of a company that's telling me I didn't know this because it was the accountant. So first of all, if you're in a public company, after 2001 in Enron, and boy, we're going to talk about that at some point, I'm sure, you, as a CEO and CFO, you signed off on that all of this was true and everything else, so get over it. Number 2, if you were the owner and didn't know, you're guilty by negligence at a bare minimum. So that excuse no flies with me. Now,
okay, well, in the hypothetical, yes, he admits that he was aware of the problem, but not the scale of the problem. So he got. I mean, that's. He's sunk as far as I'm concerned. I'd expel
The
him.
prosecutor just.
I mean, and folks, even if he repented of it, he's already established that he knew what he was doing, and he, at that point, he wasn't being prosecuted. So I'm a firm believer that if you keep him in the church and that gets out over the news or whatever, that's going to tarnish the church if you keep him. But anyway, and we want to.
I'm going to revisit real quick, because my theory on what we do with him in the church is this: can he be a deacon anymore in the church? Absolutely not. Period. End of discussion. Especially with the stance of, if he comes right out and says, "I did it, I'm repenting," we can talk about taking him off the deacon board for a period of time and then maybe restoring him. But this whole, no, absolutely not. Can he teach Sunday school? Absolutely not. Am I going to kick him out of the church? No. I am a firm believer that people are not expelled from the church. Are they removed from leadership positions? And in other words, we're not, as church, we are the haven for the sinners. If we were all pure as snow, there would be no need for a church. That's called after the second coming, and we live in glory with Jesus. But we're all sinners, so we all need the church. So do we ever stand at the door and say, "Nope, you can't come in here"? If your church is doing that to somebody, find another church.
It's troubling. We should see, because it's troubling because he's just more than just stealing his taxes. You know, everybody does that. He's depriving employees. He's actually not following labor laws, and employees are entitled to insurance and overtime. You may disagree with what the labor laws are, but you're obliged to follow them. The Paul makes that clear elsewhere. So, yeah, I would say at least limit, and certainly not out of leadership. And he may get mad. You may lose the money, but there'd probably be a lot of discussion. Well, he's a millionaire. He gives the church 6 figures a year. Yes, yeah, but there'll always be somebody
the government
there. Yeah. Now it's going to the
He will
government.
not have that million
And
to
we
give
are,
anymore.
if he does go to prison, we are supposed to have compassion for the prisoner. But
Yes.
I would not say expel, but I would certainly say limit and look at least for a confession.
I would be a total weasel if I didn't chime in on this one. And thank goodness I'm not a deacon, because Koshu would have me thrown out of being a deacon. I have paid people under the table as being a contractor. I'd be a hypocrite if I sat here and said that I didn't. But here's the thing with me. I'm not Ford Motor. We're just a small contracting company. I'm helping people out, and I'm feeding the families. Now, I get it. If I was some huge conglomerate and was able to have full HR, but I don't really feel that when you cross over into intentionality, that he intended to defraud, for me, that's the line. And Judge, you could probably go to that. When the intentionality is to actually defraud, okay, I get that. That is immoral. That's being a scumbag. Okay? But there's also the difference between helping people out. And so it depends when you cross the line to an intentionally defraud something. That's the line crossing.
But see,
for
that's
me.
subcontractors, not employees. That's the difference.
He didn't pay the insurance for the employees, so they had to pay their own money. That's another reason that went into that. And I didn't take time to list all these things out.
Right.
Which means the employees had to pay their own insurance. I've got a ton of things here, but I didn't go over the other things.
I get that.
Okay.
So we slaughtered that one. Okay. All right. Woo. All right. No, I'm not sweating so hard now that we made it through that one. Okay, this is number 2. Ready? Case number 2. A number of influential church members have received a unanimous email.
Anonymous.
Anonymous. Anonymous.
Okay. So I
email that
wrong. Okay.
Undeniably demonstrates the hugely popular youth pastor is in a gay relationship. Throughout his tenure, the youth pastor has been incredibly discreet and had never brought his partner to church or a church function, youth or otherwise. But when confronted, he admits it's true. But he's not going to end the relationship. It's who I am, he says. What do you do? Accept, limit, or expel?
So I'm the one who's going to be uncomfortable this time because I work with the youth at our church. And let me just be very clear. I happen to know Steve wrote this not with any youth pastor specifically in mind. So just I want to be very clear about that.
We just want to make it explosive.
Yeah. We just want to make it fun or uncomfortable.
Right, uncomfortable.
So this one I take a little... This one approaches differently. Number one, I understand that this has become the flashpoint issue of Christianity. Okay, first thing I'll say is
absolutely.
There is more to Christianity than whether or not we accept homosexuals, yes or no. So that's the first thing I'm going to say. There's a lot more to it beyond that. I'm going to go ahead and kind of give my answer here, and it's very similar to the other one. But in this case, we have a different concept going on. Paul and biblical teaching from the New Testament and the Old Testament is very explicit about sexual sin. And notice I said it that way, not homosexuality, sexual sin. Mm-hmm. And the no appearance of impropriety among elders of the church or leaders of the church. So I treat this no different than if that same anonymous letter came up and said, I've been out the last 3 Friday nights and I've seen that youth pastor drunk as a skunk at a bar with 3 or 4 women hanging off of him. Okay? Mm-hmm. So either direction here. In other words, I'm not saying just homosexual behavior. Mm-hmm.
Or in other words, he's taken the long way.
Yeah. Well, no. Because can he stay in his position as youth pastor? Absolutely not. Are we going to expel him from the church? Once again, absolutely not. Are we going to insist that he limit his contact with the youth group? Absolutely. And that is more of a leadership dynamic. I don't want him around when I'm trying to bring another youth pastor in. To kind of, that can be problematic on a relational and other level. So but I kind of notice I took a different spin on that, but it's partially because he's an employee of the church. The other thing that I'll say is, if you are a member of a church, the Episcopalian church is the most prominent one that comes to my mind. You have a different take on this because your church polity accepts homosexuality as norm. I disagree with that stance because I think the Bible biblically teaches that homosexual behavior is wrong. But notice I put that in the category of I'm not kicking him out, but I am telling him you cannot be an employee of this church, especially if our church believes that. And I also kept it in the same category as, he's fooling around with 5 women. Mm-hmm. The sin doesn't matter. It's the degree of impropriety and how your church views it.
Oh, okay. Judge.
All right. Robert hit on something. I thought he was going to be real clear about this, folks.
Absolutely not.
He's not. No. The difference is no difference than one of the pastors committing adultery with one of the staff members or the body members, right? That's what Paul says. Number 2, it's no different if a church found out that a minister lied about being ordained.
I disagree.
Wait, Bill, just a minute. You get your chance, son. Okay. Folks, first of all, the youth pastor knows the Bible. He knows what the church believes. He knows the Baptist doctrine. If it's the Baptist church, he is aware that he's hiding a fact for which he would not have been hired. So he's living a lie. It's real clear. He's representing to the body while he's standing up on the pulpit or whatever he's doing that he's living by the Bible and the Southern Baptists and our church standards. He intentionally and willfully is deceiving the church leadership and the church family. And as I said, there's no difference between one of the body, the staff members having adultery with another staff member or a member in the congregation committing, and they're married and they're having sex with them. So to me, if he would repent, I may allow him to stay because Robert's pushing that so hard. Otherwise, I would have said no, bye-bye, because we've seen it happen in several churches where a pastor is caught committing adultery with another staff member, another minister, or a member of congregation, and they definitely expel them.
Or another staff member's wife.
Right.
I've seen that.
And with that, we're going to go ahead and take a break. And when we come back, we are going to have the secret case study. You're going to want to be back. This is No Church Answers. Okay, if we haven't made you uncomfortable with our case studies yet, we have one more chance, and it is the secret case study handed from the producer, Steve Titch.
And just to be clear, we haven't heard this or seen this.
We have this one. No, we are, Mike. We are rolling, and this is.
And we have not seen
It's going to take me a couple minutes to open it. I have not read it, so this is a cold read. So I'm sorry for that. Case study number 3. It's some month after case study number 2, that's the gay relationship one. Your committee has promoted the associate youth pastor to replace the previous youth pastor, but attendance at youth functions has dropped. One morning, by way of making conversation, you ask your teen what she thinks about the new youth pastor. Quite nonchalantly, she replies, "The whole youth group knows he's the one who outed the former youth pastor because he wanted his job. When your committee brings this rumor to the new youth pastor, who got a large bump in pay and housing allowance with the promotion, he admits it's true and says he did the church a favor by avoiding a scandal. He even quotes 1 Corinthians 5. What do you do? Accept, limit, or expel?" And quickly, this is not far-fetched.
No, this is not.
This
is very
kind
realistic.
of thing. My only point to expel somebody is basically out of my lane. I get it. I mean, I can limit a person's influence or that kind of thing. It's out of my lane to expel them. But when people do this kind of thing, it's almost as if they are trying to get expelled or push their way in. And if you're going to expel them, the only requirement I have is this: if you're going to push them out, you better have the plan B ready.
Yep.
Okay?
Agreed.
So don't push something out and then leave a void. It's your responsibility. If you're going to push somebody out and you feel you have that responsibility or authority, have plan B ready.
So, having recently served on a youth search committee last year, bye-bye. And this is why. It goes back to the 1 Timothy. You did not behave as an elder behaved. You basically did something. You didn't do this out of care for the church. You did this because. And I'd be the first person, if the committee I had been on had done something similar and hired somebody and found out on the back end that something was wrong, I'd be the first person sitting in our pastor, trustee, and chairman of the deacon. Notice I listed pretty much everybody and anybody in the church and said, our committee made a mistake. We need to start all over. Let's get rid of him with the reason of he has violated a 1 Timothy reason of qualifications of elders. Go read it, and bye. Wouldn't even hesitate. Youth attendance has nothing to do with it. It's all about what he did to get the position.
Okay, as I understand it now, the backup youth minister, associate youth minister, the one who spread the rumor on the first one.
He's the one who added him, yes.
Okay, let me. I don't understand this, Robert, because you said you don't want to expel the other two who are doing clear directives.
Not expelling from church, but fired from the position.
Mm-hmm. Oh, fired from. Oh, okay,
Correct.
okay. Now that's what I was looking for.
Right.
That's what I was looking for.
And he has to limit contact with
first
youth
of all,
if he stays around.
I can't blame the guy for wanting to get ahead, but he shot his own foot.
Yes.
Because the youth know about it, and he will never have credibility with the youth.
Agreed.
And
Yep.
the number one thing in our churches that I've seen with the Baptist churches is they love their youth. And they are a priority, folks. And I think that is absolutely an unspoken rule in the Bible. And that's simply, you take care of your youth, and your church will thrive. And the children and the babies as well. So the guy who shot his own foot, I would say you're going to have to go, like Robert said, we are not going to have you teaching any people because you hurt yourself and because you misled the community for the wrong reason. That's for financial gain. Anyway,
I think I wouldn't even have a plan B, because actually you guys summed it up pretty well. One is that the youth is looking at you. And now I know you were on the youth committee, and you did put a representative of the youth group, maybe one or two.
We had two.
That. So
we had two on our committee.
And that's really important, because the assumption in here is that the elders met and they didn't ask the youth about any of this.
Yep.
And but the youth is watching, and I'll add, Timothy, you brought in great the first Timothy aspect, but this is really bringing the world in. This is what people do in the workplace.
Oh,
they stab the guy they stab the guy in front of him to get his job. And it's clear we don't do that in the church.
Yep.
We use different. Our ethics are different, and our approach to promote, doing the business of faith is different.
We are called to live life separately and differently, and doing what the world does to get ahead does not accomplish that. Living separately and differently.
As we know, David, when Saul was chasing him to kill him because he didn't want him to be king over Israel, David left it to the Lord and trusted the Lord. And what you guys have said is, folks, essentially, trust God for your promotion. Oh. If you're in work, you don't belittle anybody in your workplace, even if it's not the church, much less in the church, to get ahead.
And I'll finish with this, because we talked about the Episcopalians. There's a good chance that youth pastor, maybe he won't be a youth pastor, he will find a job with another church that has a slightly different take.
And I use this just because I know their theology pretty solid.
Getting a reputation for stabbing people won't help you any more in the pastoral business than it will in the secular business.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And this has been a great show. We're so glad that you joined us. And I think the big takeaway from this one, the case studies, thanks so much,
Thanks, Steve.
Producer Steve.
Good job.
Is that be ready for the hard questions and the hard situations. That stuff's going to come up. So thanks so much to the men from Man Up, Spiritual Oasis for Men. This is No Church Answers. My name is Bill Cox.
You've been watching No Church Answers, a weekly roundtable Bible discussion for men, a production of Man Up Spiritual Oasis. Want more? Check out the Man Up Spiritual Oasis for Men podcast, available wherever you download your podcast. And to learn more about us and how to support our ministry, visit our website at www.man-upspiritualoasis.com.